we have an invocation?
We do. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Let's pray. Father God in heaven, we just pray for our city. We pray for our state. We especially pray for our leaders here tonight, God, that whatever the crisis is, we pray that you lift it, whether it's political or viral or virus, God. We just pray for that. We specifically pray for the coronavirus. We pray for our city leaders that they can lead this community in the right direction. And God, we just pray that you bless this group of people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, although everybody's not standing in front of the flag, but let's go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Think of the top of a flag.
Okay, I'll ask at this time, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we have a couple of changes from what was published. On the proclamations and recognitions, we are going to postpone the police department recognition, so that will not be on tonight. And then under action agenda, we have added ordinance 2020-3159 for annual appropriations. Other than that, everything is the same as what was published.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Chuck, and a second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, bear with me here. I've got to get this proclamation on here. Okay. The next item is the Youth Art Month proclamation. And Kim, is there anything you wanted to say before I read the proclamation?
I might just say something briefly. My computer's getting a little glitchy, so we'll see how well it comes through. But yeah, I am the Concordia elementary art teacher, and we are fortunate in the Concordia School District to have elementary, middle school, and high school art programs. We have a supportive school administration and community who see the value of art education. And I have witnessed firsthand the difference art opportunities have made in the social, the emotional, and academic aspects of students' lives. And so to maintain that support and an advocacy of art education, I propose to proclaim Youth Art Month, March's Youth Art Month. And I thank you for this consideration.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Youth Art Month Mayor Proclamation. Whereas art education contributes powerful educational benefits to all elementary and secondary students, including the following. Art education develops students' creative, problem-solving, and critical thinking abilities. Art education teaches sensitivity to beauty, order, and other expressive qualities. Art education gives students a deeper understanding of multicultural values and beliefs. Art education reinforces and brings to life what students learn in other subjects. Art education interrelates student learning in art production, art history, art criticism, and aesthetics. And whereas our national leaders have acknowledged the necessity of including arts experiences in all students' education, therefore be it resolved that support should be given to art teachers as they attempt to strengthen art education in their schools and communities. Now therefore it is proclaimed that March be observed as Youth Art Month. All citizens are urged to take interest in and give full support to quality school art programs for children and youth. Now, therefore, I, Mark Matthew, Mayor of Concordia, Kansas, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as Youth Art Month.
And Mark,
Thanks, Kim.
Mark, we'll have you sign the proclamation sometime this week whenever we can get a hold of you to sign those. Also, could we, I think we missed public comment section of the agenda. Would we be able to back up and catch public comments in case there's anyone that wants to share with us?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. To use the video conference technology to use the video conference technology can be challenging when inviting public comment. Therefore, to help us proceed in an organized fashion, we request that you use the chat feature to indicate you would like to speak. The chat feature is located from the more, drop down menu with the 3 dots icon in the top right hand corner of the Zoom dashboard. After selecting chat from the menu, please type your name, address, and the topic you would like to discuss. If your name is different than how you are shown on Zoom, please also indicate your identifier so we can unmute the correct microphone. We will acknowledge speakers in the order they are received. When you are acknowledged for your turn to speak, we request that you introduce yourself by stating your name and address and speak respectfully. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments?
Mark, it looks like Denise DeRochefort-Reynolds from the Frank Carlson Library would like to make some public comments.
This is Denise at the Frank Carlson Library, and I typed into chat. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't been recognized, but do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm here to give you an update on the Frank Carlson Library and our response to the coronavirus outbreak that is affecting our nation. And as you, I'm sure know, the library is closed to the public at this time. We have done this because we have been directed to do so by the American Library Association and also by the Central Kansas Library System. The American Library Association has made some statements that I think are critical that everybody understand. First of all, it's very difficult for us to make this decision. The library board looked at many different options and very many different models for keeping the library open. And in fact, we thought we had a model yesterday and had to scrap it today. So we are working all the time to find out how we can continue to serve our community. We pride ourselves on being an important part of the community, and that as public service people means face-to-face interaction with the public, but we can't do that anymore. The American Library Association has said that the health of our library workers and the communities we serve is of utmost and equal importance. Libraries are by design unable to practice social distancing to the degree recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and other health authorities. Keeping libraries open at this time has the potential to harm communities more than help. The American Library Association underscores the importance and need to come together in this crisis and commit to ensuring our libraries, which provide so many important services to our communities, do not serve as vectors for a fast-moving pandemic. That statement is very difficult for me to make because I think libraries are a critical part of our community. So we are working very hard to figure out other delivery methods, and I just want you to know that library staff is still coming into the building. Although we're closed to the public, we are still working on projects, and we are trying very hard to find new delivery methods, primarily electronically, to keep people informed of what's going on and to help them weather this crisis. We know that information is very important, and also recognize the problems that may come from social isolation and also that may come from just being overwhelmed by the crisis. And so we have done some things. We're trying to put up some fun things as well as some informational things on our website and on our Facebook page. We have had to quit lending books and DVDs statewide. The courier system was halted in order to halt the spread of infection. We don't know exactly how long the virus can live on surfaces or exactly how effective our disinfection methods really are. And we can't risk being a contributor to this crisis. So we will continue to do as many things electronically as we can. Our method of delivery must change, at least temporarily, but I want you and our community to know that we are committed to providing the best library service possible in the safest manner. Thank you for the opportunity to let you know what's going on in our library.
Thanks, Denise.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Sabrina Scott.
Yes,
You wanted to make,
I think we got it covered in chat with Amy. Amy directed me to the right place for the, to find the agenda.
oh, okay, you got it?
Got it.
Okay, all right. Are there any other public comments? I don't see anything else typed in. Okay, move to the action agenda. I'm going to follow three things at once here. Okay, the minutes for the March 4th meeting, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from March 4, 2020.
I have a motion from Christie, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appropriation ordinance number 5. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 5.
I have a motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Downtown Improvement Program Grant request.
Hi, how is everybody?
Fine, how you doing?
Good. So the downtown improvement request, I had a new business owner come in here probably in January, and we started talking about some things that they would like to do to the front of their building, and what type of business was going to be going into the area. And although they inquired about getting the cloud funding, what they were wanting to do and what the Getting the Cloud funding has set aside just kind of wasn't the same thing. Previously, when I had come into the position last year, one of the things that I knew that we had was the Downtown Improvement Grant. And after visiting with Amy and Amber, I know that it hadn't been utilized in a while, but there were still some funds available. So I kind of did some research and visited my predecessor on how the program works and kind of what it was set up to do, and gave the application to the business owner that is in your packet. I reconvened the committee that was set forth. Although one of the committee members has since sold their business, I added a new committee member to it, and then I kept Eric on as the architect to review the process and kind of lead up this committee, since he in the past had done it before. And so upon visiting with the business owner, which is Darren Hill, and visiting about what he wanted to do, had him fill out the application, and then got Eric and Sarah Shavy together with myself, and we kind of went through all of the nuances of the application, since this was Sarah and I's first time. And Eric kind of really went into more detail about what the program was initially set up to do, and that was to encourage our downtown businesses to bring their structures back to the original architecture of the building. We have a lot of buildings in downtown that have since kind of changed the way their architecture looks, maybe try to modernize it or do some type of surfacing to them, maybe that was more cost efficient to them. So this downtown improvement grant was then put into place to help businesses bring back their original facade. And so upon visiting with Eric and going through Darren's application, we, the three of us, Eric, Sarah, and I, felt like this was a really good use of these funds. Now, if you'll look at the application and you'll look at the quote that was put into the application, a couple of things that I kind of want to explain to you. I sent Stacy some pictures today for all of you to take a look at what they're wanting to do with the front of the building. And if you'll look at the front of the building, and do you all have those pictures available to see?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at the front of the building, and let's look at the very top of the building. If you look at the picture where it has part of Jenna Blocklinger's the Fusions salon in it, you'll notice at the Fusion salon, you can see the very top of that edge that is wrapped. And then when you go to the building that we're looking at, which is Connie Walenta's previous insurance building, you'll notice at the top that wood is rotten. It was untreated wood when it was first put up, and it has since weathered and rotted and different things like that. And so what he's wanting to do is he's wanting to do exactly what Monique's Infusions and Jitters has done, and kind of keep with the same facade and wrap the very top of that to not have any more wear and tear on that building. So that's what part of the quote for the work is. And then he also wants to take the picture. You see the doors in there that are kind of rotten and really need some repair work and brought back to their original kind of gusto. He's also going to be doing that. So when you look at that quote, you see that the quote from Geisler's Roofing is the $6,930, but that's not what the downtown improvement grant is looking to fulfill. We're asking that the commission approve monies out of the downtown improvement grant to be spent for the furnish and install of the soffit and fascia on the front of the building for $1,600, and then the furnish install of the paint of the front of the building to paint the walls white and the trim black, just as it originally was when it was first built. And so that was another $1,850. The new business owner will be taking care of prepping the roof and doing all of the roof work.
And there, Kim, I'm sorry, I might have missed it, but the door, you said who's going to take care of the door's not on in that amount. The door will actually, where it says furnish and install paint for the front of the building and paint the white walls, trim and white walls, paint the walls white and trim black. That will include fixing the door. Okay. All right.
So, on the application, it's kind of I'm going to say a 50% match. That's what we kind of went with as a committee. I know the dollar amount that's left in that fund, and so we have visited as a committee, and Eric feels like this is a really good way to help bring back their original look to that building and have it match all the way across the other three of those buildings. It would just kind of conform right together.
Okay.
questions on that?
You know, I had some questions earlier, wondering kind of how those funds were allocated, but once I kind of processed through it, it made a lot more sense. And that was it wasn't in the presentation; it was in my processing of it. So I think it'd be great to get that in uniform. I was worried that they were going to cover those upper corables, and I would not want to see those go away. But knowing that it's just getting in line with the others was.
And Eric and Sarah and I talked about that extensively when Eric was kind of going through how they've done this process in the past, which I was really glad he agreed to continue on the committee. But when he was going through what the dollars were set aside for when the fund was first set up, and how you're right, the gables and those architectures where the black L shape comes out with the white dots on them, and that's what Eric said. He's like, that's preserving the architecture. We don't want to cover that stuff up. So if it were to cover that up, we would have said absolutely not. But where it's just 8 to 10 inches of that very top to cover that rotted wood, then he agreed. He said that was preserving the original architecture of the building. And I will, one of the things that Eric did mention that I'd like to mention here is he said, this program really helped a lot of our downtown buildings. And if if everybody feels like we need to continue encouraging business owners to restore the fronts of their downtowns, he would highly encourage throwing some dollars back into this fund. When I was visiting with Ashley and Eric about it, one of the things that both of them said was they felt like when the Get in the Cloud grant was established, that the downtown improvement grant, then we thought that those funds, the Get in the Cloud funds, could kind of take the place of that. But it's really not the same. When Eric and Sarah and I dove into this process and we started looking at the application and what this is really set aside for, yes, Get in the Cloud funds could potentially be utilized for this, but this is kind of a smaller funding than the Get in the Cloud. Right, and a very specific purpose for the outside preserving the architecture of the building. So it's something, that when you all start looking at your fiscal funds for next year, that, kind of encourage you to look at this program and see if, even if, we start out, like Eric said, if you start out, you can just put $5,000 into the fund and you open it up to everybody, and then if what's used is there, and then maybe if it's not all used, the next year can be built on top of that, and the fund could be built back up again to encourage those buildings to bring back their original architecture.
Okay. I think it's a good program to have. I love it when we try to preserve the original look of downtown and try to keep away from putting metal over everything. So,
absolutely.
And Sarah was great because she brought in a lot of pictures of the front of what those buildings that are covered with metal used to look like. And she said if we could encourage business owners with these funds that would be available for them to apply for, if we could encourage them and make it cost effective for them to be able to restore their buildings, she said what our downtown could look like would be amazing.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else, Kim?
I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you for presenting. And do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the downtown improvement grant for Darren Hill in the amount of $3,118.50.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Chuck. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Health Library appointment. We have John Van Meter, who has an expression of interest in serving on the library board.
I move to appoint John Van Meter to the library board for a 4-year term.
I have a motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Christy. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Zoning change ordinance 2118 Republican Street. Bruno?
Oh, there now. Now can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I finally got it unmuted. The ordinance before you comes as a recommendation from the Planning Commission for zoning change at 2118 Republican by Nathan Ringy and Caitlin Steinbrock. They want to buy that property, develop it, remove the old structure that's there, and develop it. And you have the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting. It was a 4-1 recommendation from the Planning Commission. As the ordinance says, there are your options. We recommend you approve it. There was one protest petition against it, but it didn't meet the threshold to create a supermajority vote. So for an order for the ordinance to pass, it just has to be a simple majority.
Okay. I think the biggest concern was the retaining wall that the Hattesalls had, and I think that was addressed. They'll be sensitive to that and won't cause damage to that wall.
Mark, I had a question for Bruno. Just out of curiosity, how do you let the people in that area know about the change?
Zoning change?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everybody within in the city limits within 200 feet gets personal notice with the public hearing notice, a copy of the public hearing notice, and then when that 200 feet line hits the city limits, then it goes out another 1,000 feet. And I think if you look in your packet, it showed that notification area, and it also had a list of the resident, all the contacts, all the, of course, some of them are redundant. There's or several properties in that area, but you can see the outlined area, the hash area is the notice area, and then the list is all the people that were notified on down in the packet.
Except that on the list, we were on there and we didn't get notified. I was
the list. Your name's crossed out because see that map.
Yeah.
On the map, your property doesn't fall in the map. The list, our mapping program, our GIS mapping program, won't let me go out 1,000 feet and stop it there. So I had to get Campbell and Johnson involved. But on the list, I just went out and crossed the names that weren't within that area.
Oh well,
because I didn't have to notify them, which would have been you, yeah.
That's our.
If you draw that 1,000-foot circle on around, it would have taken up half of College Heights edition or more.
Well,
almost everybody
curious.
would have been notified.
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I think it's a good deal that they want to.
Yeah, that's always a controversial issue, and this is the one area. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the one area where, a big landowner outside the city limits can actually influence what's happening right inside the city limits. Because if there was one landowner that owned all that land, that could make 20% and create a harder vote.
Okay, I see the notification map now.
I didn't. This isn't a list with crossed out names.
No, it wasn't. That's
I
why.
got the wrong list in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I crossed out all the ones that fell out of that 1,000-foot area.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, everybody got notified that was required to.
Okay. I assumed they did, but I noticed that our name was on the list, so I thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not the right list actually, but the people that did get notified are on that list.
This is Sabrina Scott again. I just have to ask this question. What maps are you guys looking at, and how are you viewing them? I'm not seeing the maps on the agenda, or any of the details related to the agenda items.
I mean, it's in the board packet. Just keep going down.
probably need to scroll down a little more.
You can find a map 51.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-3158.
I have a motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. Those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Planning Commission and Board of Building Trades appointment.
Yeah, that's me again. I see right on the memo I spelled his name wrong. Stephen J. Connor. He was actually the protester on the Republican rezoning, but he's applied to expression of interest for the Planning Commission and the Board of Building Trades, and we can use him, and that would make the Board of Building Trades more solid, so we could, have more applicants or more people on board, so we don't have to worry about having a quorum if one person happens to be sick or something. But of course, that's not an issue right now. But anyway, so I'd recommend you approve him for both, and we'll get him going.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to appoint Stephen Connor to the Planning Commission and the Board of Building Trades.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Chuck. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Resolution 2020-2095 and Commission Policy 2020-1.
Okay, this is the utility bill policy, and as I was looking at myself in this video, I just noticed how many times I've touched my face during our meeting today, so that's fantastic. But this is the policy that we had brought to you guys a few meetings ago, and then previous meeting we had a study session on. So essentially what we're doing here, if you want to look at the policy, it's pretty simple. We're just not going to allow people to keep their names or keep a utility in someone else's name. Kind of the same stuff that we had discussed at the meeting. Remember, this is a policy, so it's, we're not going to go out and troll, funeral homes or anything like that. We just need some teeth and something here so we can have some type of an enforcement mechanism for those who do decide to take advantage of their situation.
Okay. I know we talked about it a lot, and I think we've got it synthesized down to what I think is reasonable. I don't know. Is there any other comments about it?
No, I appreciate the patience in working through some of the issues that I know I had. I think it's worthwhile. Just wanted to clean it up a little bit.
Do I have a motion
I would move to approve Resolution 2020-2095.
I have a motion from Chuck.
Second.
Is that Marcia?
Yes.
Second from Marcia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public Works half-ton pickup purchase.
The city solicited bids for a 4x4 half-ton pickup, and they received bids from Farm Country Ford and Concordia Chevrolet Buick. Farm Country Ford was for $27,761.28. Concordia Chevrolet Buick was $28,164.50. Farm Country Ford didn't meet all the specs on that truck, so I'm recommending that we purchase the one from Concordia Chevrolet Buick in an amount of $28,164.50. Is there any questions on that?
What specs did they not meet, Ron?
They couldn't meet that little book that they're supposed to give us at the bottom of the spec sheet. I just here.
Owner's manual.
Service manuals, and then the rear end was lower than what I had spec'd on there. I had a range from 742 to was 742 to 355. 340.55. And just so you guys know, I went out there beforehand and asked them if they could meet this stuff, and they said they could. And then after I sent it out, they called me and told me they couldn't do some of this stuff. Yeah. So.
Okay.
There are some extras on the Chevrolet truck that doesn't come on that Ford truck, like a backup camera, and I believe I had them highlighted down below down there.
Oh, okay.
Here. So there's about 2 or 3 other things that were on there too that didn't come with the Ford.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, discussion?
I move to approve the purchase of the half-ton truck from Concordia Chevrolet Buick for $28,164.50.
I have a motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Christy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public Works mower purchase.
Yes, we just solicited bids for that too, and we received from Career Mower and Electric a bid of $15,662.10. Prairie Land Partners for a John Deere for $15,003, and on them, the mower, the Grasshopper mower, is a 0-turn. That works so much better for us. Like the John Deere, the rear wheels turn it. And when you pull in around a cemetery stone, you got to back it out. Versus where the Grasshopper, you can drive in and just keep right on going through there. Also, the Grasshopper, the deck adjusts electrical, so you can adjust it when you're riding, mowing, or if you get tall grass or whatever. I just believe it'd be a better fit for the city.
Well, I can say that from the number of people that contacted me, talking about damage to headstones and whatnot, it sounds like, I don't have a horse in the race, but it sounds like the one with the adjustable deck and the one that's with the Grasshopper, the way it's designed, might allow the operators to maybe have less of a chance of damaging stones. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is.
I'd agree with that, Mark.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of the Grasshopper riding mower from Career Mower and Electric for $15,662.10.
I have a motion from Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sports complex mower purchase.
Yes, right along with everything that Ron said. When we came across the ability to purchase another mower for one that we had kind of phasing out, Ron had already been through this process and had bids already sent out, so we piggybacked off what he had already sent out. Specs were pretty much the same. So going off the same results, the two factors is exactly what Ron had said. The adjustability of the deck. We raise and lower the decks while we're mowing, while they're on the same field, not only to cut it lower, but maybe to spread it and chop it up a little bit more for games ready. And then the 0-turn factor, not only trying to cut time down mowing, but as much as turning and stuff we have to do out there. So those are two things for us that really impact the difference in the two mowers, and that's why we were recommending also the Career Mower Electric 0-turn Grasshopper.
I think the efficiency of the 0-turn, I think, will make up the little bit extra between the two mowers. And as you said, Mark, the cemetery makes sense for the gravestones, but out of the sports complex has a similar benefit. I think we'll catch up that efficiency pretty quick. I'd move to approve the purchase of the Grasshopper riding mower from Career Mower Electric for $15,662.10.
Yeah, figured it out. Maybe they can hear me.
Second.
Hello. I have a motion from Chuck and a second from Keaton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Deed of Lot 1, Block 199 to Kansas Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I'll take that one. What's going on with this is with the shoulder widening project that we have out on 81, we have been speaking to KDOT, and there's a portion there that's Lot 1 where they'll have concrete, signage, potential storm drainage, lighting, that kind of stuff. And in speaking with them, they said, yeah, you can keep it essentially, but you have to make sure you never sell it, ever. And so in talking with Ron, we decided that it would probably be better just to deed that to KDOT because we don't want to, further down the line when all of us are gone, have somebody not realize we can't sell it and accidentally sell that piece, sell that lot. So it's just this one lot, and that's why we're going to deed it over, just because we can't ever sell it anyway. So we're going to deed that out of the land bank and give it to KDOT.
Said it'll allow for any possible mishaps down the road or problems.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I move to approve the quitclaim deed of Lot 1, Block 199 in the to the Kansas Department of Transportation.
I have a motion from Christie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marcia. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Justin. Ordinance 2020-3159, annual appropriations.
Okay, this is one that has just come out kind of as a result of a lot of the coronavirus talk. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. As on several conference calls with the League of Kansas Municipalities, as well as working through the listserv with the Kansas Association of City Managers, one of the concerns that we as managers have is that if the virus continues to spread, which we hope that it doesn't through the mitigation measures, but if it does continue to spread, we may run the risk of not having a quorum at some point in time in the near future. We may also run the risk of not being able to have meetings at all for one reason or another. And so what this annual appropriation ordinance allows us to do is to continue the financial operations of the city. We can actually pay our bills on time in the event that we're not able to have a meeting and have the commission be able to authorize each appropriation ordinance, just as we've done tonight. So tonight we just ask for your approval to authorize that ordinance through the end of this year to help kind of get us over the hump, to help us continue those business operations. And we will have to stay within our budget authority that you've already authorized through the adoption of the budget. We won't be able to go beyond that. We still have to comply with Kansas cash basis laws and our budget law, so we won't go outside of those parameters. But this would just allow us to go ahead and send the checks to the vendors to be able to pay those accounts in the event that we would not be able to have a commission meeting for some reason. Are there any questions?
The question I had, Amy, and I apologize for not asking this sooner. Does that only go into effect if we are not able to have a quorum for that meeting, or does this mean that even if we are able to have that there's still that authority within the city departments?
The way the ordinance is written, and it was built from a sample ordinance from the League of Kansas Municipalities, it's in effect all the time, but the only reason we would use it is if we would not have a commission meeting for some reason or another.
Amy, I had a question too, and I meant to ask you earlier. Did we not pass an ordinance or resolution that we don't follow the Kansas cash basis law and budget law?
No,
when we're audited.
The resolution that we passed says that we don't follow the generally accepted accounting principles. We still have to follow the Kansas cash basis law.
Okay. I knew there was something about that. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-3159.
A motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Addendum to Business Continuity Plan, Public Health Emergency.
The City of Concordia already has a business continuity plan in place. We also call it our Emergency Operations Plan. I believe the version that I have was drafted in 2013, and I understand from staff that it has been updated since then. As we looked through it for some guidance related to this coronavirus outbreak or this pandemic, we found that we did not have a specific part of the plan for public health emergencies. And in looking for different guidance in there, we really didn't find a lot of specifics. So we decided that we needed to kind of muddle through. We've been having conversations with the LAPC group, with the local health department, with several other organizations around town, and specifically quite a bit of conversation with our department head staff, from everything on how to handle facilities cleaning to operational protocol changes to how to address questions from personnel related to leave, for example. And we felt that we really needed to draft some kind of a plan that addressed some of those things, but still had the flexibility to be applicable, not just for this pandemic, but for any other public health emergency. So that's kind of the impetus for this plan. We'll walk you through it. I know you got it late in the game, not soon enough to get into the packet, so I do want to walk through it. If you'll open up the Addendum 1 to the Emergency Operations Plan, it shows that pre-planning, we'll make sure that we review the Cloud County Local Emergency Operations Plan, which is one that's required to be adopted to make our county and all the entities within the county eligible for FEMA reimbursement if that time would ever come. And we also need to make sure that we're maintaining strong relationships with all those involved in that plan to make sure that our personnel know their responsibilities and that we have the equipment and supplies necessary for an initial response. We know that a lot of time when we get into disaster preparedness, FEMA will ask us to make sure that we have enough equipment, supplies, knowledge, and resources to be on our own for up to 72 hours. And I believe that we have that sufficiently ready to go here, at least as far as we're able to predict. If we move down to the implementation section, we've divided that into two segments to implement this plan. One is in a watch situation and one is in a warning situation. So we attempted to define those slightly based on our conversations. We're calling a watch situation one in which a public health emergency has been declared either at the national or the state level, which is what we have at this point in time. A watch is where there have been no confirmed cases in Cloud County or any immediately adjacent county. So as long as there's no confirmed cases in Republic, Ottawa, Clay, or Mitchell counties. And we believe that that's the situation that we're in now based on the information that we have currently. A warning, however, would be that we have that national or state emergency declaration and there's been a confirmed case of whatever the illness or the qualifying event would be for one of our adjacent counties or Cloud County. So back up to the warnings or the watch situation, we've further defined that into internal protocols and external protocols. Under internal protocols, we've divided that into communication actions, personnel actions, operational protocols, and financial considerations. So again, I'll walk you through those briefly. They're basically the same for watches and warnings. There's some slight variations, and so I'll go through those under the warning section. Under the watch section, if you look at internal protocols, communications, we place a lot of responsibility on the city manager for communications between the city commission, department heads, and employees for updates and to carry out in response to current information and recommendations related to city operations. Also communications for residents and businesses, responsibility to inform the public of happenings and make sure that we have city representatives at the local emergency preparedness committee or LAPC. And then placing an expectation on the department heads to attend all meetings that are called and then to relay that information back to their employees as well. Under personnel, we want to make sure that our employees are following recommendations of the CDC and KDHE, which we are implementing at this point in time and have implemented for several days. We want to make sure that all employees are going to continue their normal work duties, but the methodology and how they go about those might be adjusted slightly to be able to meet the needs of the residents and still protect our staff from an exposure. And protecting our staff from an exposure is a high priority because we want to be able to continue to serve the public as long as possible. We believe that stability is very important for our community during these times. Additionally, we want to go ahead and reference back and follow the employee handbook for all guidance unless the CDC or KDHE recommends that we do something contrary to that. And we want to let employees know that we might be limiting their business travel, which we have limited their business travel at this point in time, and that personal travel may be implemented. I know that sounds like that may be a bit far-reaching, but we were on a conference call with the league yesterday, and their staff attorneys indicated that if employee personal travel was going to be on their vacation or personal leave time, which the employer pays their time during that, and if they were going to go to what they considered a hot zone or a zone with confirmed cases of this illness that we're trying to mitigate, for example, then we could tell employees that they could not go. Moving on to operational protocols, we want to make sure again that recommendations from the CDC and KDHE are implemented. We would increase cleaning and sanitizing frequency and make sure that we're using appropriate supplies there. We also want to reduce employee touch points. We know that the virus, from the information that we have, will live on items from anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to up to 12 hours for the touch points that we frequently have. For city operations, touch points could be anything from materials and equipment to doorknobs and door handles to counters to even the cash that we handle for payments and dog tags, for example. We also want to limit have the ability to limit face-to-face meetings, including one-on-one interactions. We do have a lot of public that comes in to visit with our department heads. Specifically, Bruno visits with quite a few folks for building permits, as an example. And we also have several advisory boards that come to City Hall to meet, and City Commission. So as you'll note tonight, this is our very first ever 100% Zoom-led meeting, and so far it seems to be going pretty well, so we appreciate everybody's flexibility there. We also want to practice social distancing and encouraging that. I think the recommended practice right now is about 6 feet, wherever practical. And then we want to increase the use of personal protective equipment as it seems appropriate. Finally, under internal considerations for a watch is financial considerations, and under those, departments would be able to spend what they normally do under their normal budget authority, but anything related to a public health emergency spending would need to be documented in the event that we end up applying for FEMA reimbursement. Are there any questions for internal protocols under a watch situation?
Amy, I had a question. If it would, and I'm sure that you all talked about this, would it make sense to increase not just the immediately adjacent, but also Jewel, Washington, Lincoln, and Clay, just because of the amount of traffic and movement that would still happen even within those counties?
I think you could broaden that interpretation if we think that makes sense for us. We had just talked about just immediately adjacent, but you bring a good point about the travel between the communities. Is that something that you would like to see amended in this policy?
I mean, I don't think it would hurt. Hopefully this isn't something that we have to reference again after this all passes. But I think if we're gonna implement that for Republic or Ottawa, that it would make as much sense to implement it for Jewel or Lincoln counties, Washington counties. Just because it's the flow of people is still going to be about as equal from what we have listed. Okay, and that makes some sense. I know that Great Bend was considering the reach of a 100-mile radius from their county, so we could do something similar. Would that make sense? And then we could list the counties that would encompass to help provide additional guidance. I mean, I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other at that point. Whatever's going to make the most sense would be the most clear cut. I mean, I think if we outline the counties, then we don't necessarily have to indicate that the first 20 miles of this county is included in that 100-mile reach. If we outline every county around the Brady Bunch, that should get us all. Okay. So we'll extend the reach a little bit. It might be easier to enter, simpler. Yes, I would agree. Listing which counties makes it much easier to help us figure that out. So we'll expand that reach a little bit on there. Thank you for that suggestion. If we move on to external protocols, what I've listed in here is a suggestion, and these are some things that we have done, and some of them we have not done, but as we're thinking through what could possibly happen in the future. Hey, Amy, real quick, I just noticed a comment from someone that was suggesting 2 counties away. That was from a health professional that we have here. Okay. So I just want to allow them to speak to that. I mean, it's not public comments, but they were suggesting maybe 2 counties away. So I'm not sure that I would trust their input more than mine.
No, I think you're right, Chuck. That's what we've been talking about at the health department meetings and stuff, is like 2 counties away. So like here, and then Clifton, because they always go over to Washington County, and then whatever's past there, Marshall and whatever's right past there. So I don't know the names of all the counties too away from us, but that's what we've been talking about. When we get a case there, that's when things are going to really get more serious here.
Should that include Nebraska then as well? I'm wondering if the 100-mile radius would be a better idea, you know, in order to encompass all of that, or a certain mile. I don't know about 100 miles, but is that...
Or maybe if 100 miles touches a county, then we include the whole of the county.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it touches, it's in. The whole county's in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for thank you all for that. So we'll add 100-mile, whatever counties are within a 100-mile radius, and that should get us the 2 counties beyond our borders. And we will list the counties in this plan, and that way that should take care of that issue.
Yes.
So if we go back to external protocols under a watch situation, if we adopt this addendum as it's written, it would give me as city manager authority to temporarily close parks, including the plaza and the sports complex, temporarily close the Brown Grand. Now, we understand that we have a management agreement with the Brown Grand, and we are thankful for that board for choosing to cancel some of their events for the next few weeks. But because we own the building, that's why I've listed that in here. To suspend recreation programming, which we have not done at this point. We are still accepting applications for summer rec programming. To temporarily close the lobbies of City Hall and the Police Department. To suspend public relations works by the city departments, such as outreach education or community tours within our walls. To suspend code enforcement work by the city departments. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of inspections that Bruno does, for example, that goes into people's different homes when they're sick, and or different people's homes to do things like water heater or electrical panel inspections. If they're sick, we want to be able to have the flexibility to say we're not going to go in there just yet unless it's an absolute critical need. Same way with the inspections on the commercial buildings that are being done by the fire department. Also want to be able to adjust the timing and payment for utility billing, and we know that there was a governmental executive order issued this week that stated that we could not do shutoffs for utility billing, but we need to be able to have some flexibility in our timing for that as well. So for example, we normally delay billing on months with 5 weeks in them, and that was going to happen during May. For this time, we went ahead and delayed it a week in April, and the reason that we did that was to help mitigate some of those touch points. And also to adjust any other services necessary just to mitigate the exposure to employees and to protect the health and safety of the public. Things unforeseen that we don't know that are going to happen. And I hope the City Commission agrees. I've been trying to do a good job of keeping you all informed of these things are coming up, and definitely giving you an option to say, whoa, time out, we need to back up and rethink this. Another external protocol is to give the City Commission authority, which they do have anyway under Home Rule, to restrict any business or personal functions within the City of Concordia, including but not limited to the restriction of mass gatherings or business closure, travel, things of that nature. So we know that we have some communities in our state that have restricted gatherings down to 10 people, Johnson County being one of those, and Wyandotte County. They have also issued local restrictions on businesses, saying that they are closing their restaurants and their bars for dine-in capacity only. So again, we have that authority, but it's nice to know that in this plan, it kind of reminds you that you have that authority if you think it's warranted. Obviously, something like that probably would not be done without consultation with our local health board or the health department or the LEPC. Does that seem reasonable for being in a watch situation to have these abilities or these reminders listed in a plan?
I think it's reasonable.
Okay. And understanding that we may not have to enact any or all of these, they're definitely all mutually exclusive, that kind of thing. Let's move on to the warning situation, and this will be when there's a confirmed case within our county, or now we've stated within a bordering county within a 100-mile radius. The communication protocols stay the same. Personnel ramps up just a little bit, and what we do there is we want to be able to give ourselves the authority to send non-essential personnel home. And we also want to have the flexibility within this plan to determine, based on the cause or the outbreak or what the health emergency is, the specifics of that, as to who the non-essential personnel or the essential personnel are. So as an example, and we talked about this morning, in the event of a tornado where you have debris management, Public Works is absolutely essential. Our streets and parks guys are absolutely essential because they can operate the equipment to pick up debris and move it out of the street. But in a public health emergency, for example, those Public Works guys are probably not going to be considered essential personnel. So in that case, we would send them home. Obviously, we want everybody to be on emergency callback. It's nice to know that we have 55 plus employees that we can have at our disposal if we need additional hands and feet for whatever purpose. Essential personnel that would be required to work during the emergency, we want to be able to offer them a pay differential, similar to what we do for holiday pay for our police and fire personnel at this point in time. So what we're offering is, or what we're proposing is, time and a half for those that do have to continue to work during a public health emergency. We would still staff probably at normal levels unless something else caused us to want to staff up, but that would be our plan at this point in time. We want to have the flexibility to ask employees to work from home if it's practical and if their work allows it. There's a lot of things that we do that we can't do from home. We can't fix a water main break from home, for example. We can't fill a pothole from home, for example. But I know, like Chris and I have talked with recreation, there's some things that he can do. He can contact umpires from home. He can contact and do interviews over the phone from home. He can process and formulate teams from home, that kind of thing. We were talking about employees pay for hours worked during a public emergency. We talked about that, the time and a half, and being available on callback. Item 6 talks about employee leave during a public health emergency. And we kind of pattern this off of the guidelines from KDHE right now related to quarantine. So again, this is kind of fluid. This is something that could change, but right now this is our plan. Basically, any employee that would take an extended leave, we want to make sure that we do the FMLA paperwork to protect their jobs. That's what that's intended to do for, protect their jobs for up to 12 weeks. Full-time employees that are paid or that are told not to report to work would be paid at 1 times their salary, so just straight time for the normal amount of hours that they work. So we have some full-time employees that work less than 40 hours. We have some full-time employees that work 40 hours. Whatever they normally work is what they would get paid. Then employees that are exposed to illness for a qualifying event would follow, during their normal course of work, would follow the incident reporting procedures. So the example of this is our EMS staff cannot refuse a transport. If they have to go and they have to transport somebody to the hospital, they have a risk of getting exposed. Now, they are taking measures, a lot of precautionary measures right now to mitigate that, but the possibility still exists. If that happens, we plan to treat that as a workers' compensation type thing. We'll fill out an incident report. They would likely go into a self-quarantine, that kind of thing, and until we can follow those procedures. But we would handle that like a work comp incident. Employees that are subject to quarantine due to non-self-inflicted self-quarantine, we're proposing up to 80 hours of additional sick leave. So the discussion we've been having is if our employees choose to go on vacation to an area that's been identified as a hot zone or a zone that has confirmed cases, they choose to go there and then come back and self-quarantine, that's a self-inflicted self-quarantine. Does that make sense? Non-self-inflicted self-quarantine would be, I've been here the whole time and all of a sudden one of my family members or I get sick and I have to get tested and I'm confirmed and now I'm quarantined. That's non-self-inflicted self-quarantine. So for that, we're proposing to follow what the county recently did, which was enact an additional 80 hours of sick leave available to employees so that they are paid for that time that they're in quarantine. And then their sick leave is still available after that if they continue to be sick. Does that make sense? Okay, it's kind of confusing. And then we're proposing in here that under a warning, employees might be denied vacation or personal leave requests. And that goes back to what I talked about on the conference call with the league attorneys, that we could deny those requests if they're proposing to go to a place where they have a confirmed disease and there's a potential to bring it back to our community. We don't want to have that happen. That's the whole reason that we're taking precautionary measures. And then knowing that business travel will be limited and personal travel by employees would be limited, and that all employees are subject to callback. Any questions on the personnel side of things at this point in time?
Amy, I have a question. It's not specific to that, but I want to ask it while I've got it on my mind. And I know it can cause a panic. I know there may be HIPAA concerns or privacy concerns or whatever. And I have a question for Dr. Dorothy Breaux. Dorothy, are you still here?
I am, yes.
Okay. If somebody comes into the hospital, let's say we've got this 100-mile radius thing, and let's say other counties do too. And let's say somebody in Washington County has someone that comes in, or let's say we have someone come in and you see them and they are diagnosed with the virus. You, as part of the protocol, ask them where they've been in the last 2 weeks and when their symptoms started, of course, but where have they been? And if they say, well, I've been to Washington County and I've been to Mitchell County and I've been here, and what were you doing and who were you seeing and everything, I know that can cause a panic, but I think with what we're seeing, it might be prudent, and I don't know how we would warn people. And again, it could be a HIPAA thing or what, I don't know.
That's not actually what we do. When we have a case, we report it to the KDHE, and then they do all of this tracking down of their contacts, where they've been, all of that stuff.
Okay.
If we get to a situation where we're really overwhelmed, like the state of Washington and things like that, that kind of tracking down stuff comes to an end, and it's more just containment and trying to keep it contained.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Amy.
All right. Okay, so we're on warning. We're going to go to external protocols, and basically the same thing as internal protocols there. So we still have, you still give me the authority to do some temporary adjustments to make things happen without having to convene a special meeting because of the time delay on that. But we also want to give you the authority to make some restrictions. And then down at the very bottom, I have a note there that any executive order issued by the President of the United States, Governor, any orders issued by KDHE, the county commissioners, or the county health department are going to take precedence over our plan, and then we'll implement those directives as directed. It's important to understand that when you're talking about emergency management and disasters, really, I learned last week at a training that the county commissioners are the lowest level of local government that the state recognizes when it comes to emergency management, or that FEMA recognizes. So what they say has to go, and like in this situation with the public health emergency, our local county health department is the one that's in charge of this. So we really have to look to them for some direction. I think I'm seeing that there's a chat question on here. Check that really quick. There's a question asking if there's COVID-19 tests available for EMS and healthcare staff, and Dr. Breaux, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's certain criteria that have to be met, and only a medical professional can recommend that somebody get tested, and that there are limited tests available. But we have implemented screening questions, and I believe that our EMS department has implemented some screening questions for patients on calls that they go to see in certain areas as well.
Yes, there's limited testing. You have to meet certain criteria, and then the KDHE has to, well, actually, it had just changed actually later this afternoon. Initially, KDHE had to approve every single test that we were going to run. Now we just submit a questionnaire, and they will approve it or not approve it.
Great, thank you.
Amy, I think that Dr. Breaux also had a question about employees being called back. That you might be able to answer more clearly than I could.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't see that question. Let me take a look at that real quick. So the question is, so if employees get called back, do they then get time and a half? Also, if non-essential employees get home, do they still get paid? And the answer is yes to both. If an employee gets called back to work. So one of the examples that we're giving is our water department. If we consider the water department non-essential employees, for the most part, they're still going to check the wastewater treatment plant and the wells daily to keep that system operational, but that doesn't take the whole crew. So let's say that we send the whole crew home, and 2 days later we have a water main break. That crew that gets called back in, then yes, would get the time and a half. It won't be in addition to the paid leave for non-essential. It will replace that leave for non-essential. If we choose to send non-essential employees home when we say you cannot report to work, then yes, we want to put them on paid administrative leave at their straight time rate. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, if you have other questions, happy to take them. Otherwise, we definitely wanted to see if you would go ahead and authorize this into a plan, adopt this as part of our plan tonight. And again, it would be an addendum to the existing business continuity plan or emergency operations plan that the city does have in place already.
Will I have a motion to approve the addendum to the Concordia Emergency Operating Plan, Public Health Emergency?
I move to approve the addendum to the business continuity plan, public health emergency.
With the changes, Chuck?
Yes, I'm sorry, with the changes made. Thank you, Marcia.
I have a motion from Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marcia. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. And after we make those updates, I'll go ahead and send those to the health department too and let them know that, and request that they notify us if they hear of any confirmed cases within that radius.
All knowing that the state and federal government have the right to change our
plans tomorrow, sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Amy. All right. I guess we're ready for a manager's report.
Sure. Great news to report, and again, I think as we stated and as was published on NCK today, our staff really believes strongly in continuing to help and continuing to serve the community, and we were very fortunate with our food drive this year. We collected items throughout February and partway into March, and we were able to deliver 3,250 non-perishable items and toiletry items to the Resource Center on Monday morning. In addition, our staff had also donated $520, which we then converted into perishable items such as meat, eggs, and bread. So we're very fortunate to be able to restock the Resource Center right here at the end of spring break. And Tanya was very appreciative of that as well. Finally, just to let you know, we've obviously been spending a lot of time trying to digest all of the changing information coming in on this COVID-19 pandemic. Wanted to reiterate to the commission that we've been working very collaboratively with several agencies and organizations throughout town just to make sure we know kind of what everybody else is doing. They know what we're doing. Our employees were informed late yesterday and got information again today regarding some of the stuff that we included in the plan and kind of what our expectations were of them as well. We continue to follow and encourage others to follow as well all CDC and KDHE recommendations regarding social distancing, washing of hands, staying home when you're sick, and the quarantine if they've been to those areas. We really want to help to flatten the curve, I think is the terminology that's being used right now. Really want to make sure that happens here in town. Again, I said we've implemented several mitigation measures so that our employees can stay healthy and continue to serve our community throughout here. We've done some facility limitations. Our front lobby is still open. We are still accepting water bill payments. We followed the governor's directive not to do shutoffs on Tuesday morning. But we are asking folks that if they come in and pay, for example, with cash, at this point in time, we're not issuing change, but we are happy to apply any overpayment to a credit on their next month's bill. But just trying to minimize, again, those touch points. We've also suspended dog tag registration through the month of March. Normally we offer that for free. So when we begin again, hopefully in April, we will again take the month of April to offer those dog tags for free. But again, there's a lot of touch points that happens during those transactions, and we're just trying to minimize those. Our parks are still open. We encourage sunshine and fresh air for everyone. Encourage social distancing through the use of the parks. However, the events at Broadway Plaza through April 13th have been canceled, and then we'll reevaluate at that point in time to see what we need to do there. Primarily, those events consisted of broadcasting Royals baseball games, which that's been delayed. The start of that season's been delayed anyway, so we won't be out too much there. We have implemented a daily employee screening. We patterned our screening tool off of the one that the hospital implemented this week. And that way we're being kind of consistent with what other organizations are doing. So we are asking our employees to self-screen and then to stay home if they meet those certain criteria. And we just continue to monitor the condition and the changing information and try to readily adapt as we see fit. Happy to answer any questions about either of these items or anything else that you wanted to mention. Oh, yes. Also, before we end the meeting, I know we still have some more reports to go through, but we would make a request that at the end of this meeting, instead of adjourning, we would like to recess the commission meeting until 5:30 tomorrow evening. And the reason for that is that the County Board of Health is meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And we want to maintain the flexibility that we have, such that if we need to take action following some of their recommendations, we can go ahead and do that immediately tomorrow night and not have to wait with the notice period required to call a special meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Staff reports, I might be a little bit out of order here, but Eric, we kind of, I think maybe I missed it, but I remember hearing about it on the news, following it. But could you give us a little bit of a report on the competition that our firefighters participated in? Because I don't want to miss that as far as giving them accolades for their participation.
Yeah, they went to Kansas City and participated in the lung climb. I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but they raised more than they had before. And once again, Levi took first place in it. They all did very well and completed everything and did an awesome job representing Concordia.
Okay.
Fantastic.
That's a great achievement. Thank you. Marcia, do you have any comments?
Staff reports. Somebody needs staff reports, Mark.
Is there any other staff reports?
Ron here. Hey, I just want to let you know about the first street shoulder that we've been working on 81 Highway down there. Concrete's been poured, and they did a bunch of the grade work today. They still have some cleanup to do, plus the seating and one light pole to put it back in. And then it'll be complete. So hopefully by the end of next week, we can have that open back up.
Okay, good. Man, good deal. Any other staff reports? Okay, we'll move to Mayor and Commissioner reports. Marcia?
I'd just like to thank all the city employees for what they're doing, all the extra work with this virus. It's affected us all, but we'll get through it. And we appreciate the extra work and trying to keep everyone safe.
Okay, Chuck?
First is a little lighthearted, but maybe not. I hear a fire smoke detector chirping somewhere. I would encourage someone to change their battery out to make sure that their smoke detectors are working appropriately. Don't want anybody here or anywhere else to have struggle with that. The next, I think, is I think speaking to the preaching to the choir, but would just really invite everyone that has the opportunity to try to challenge some of the cavalier attitudes that seem to continue to persist about this being bogus or not that serious, that it's some kind of hoax. I think that it's really disheartening to know that there is a real concern. We have our county as a population that is older than some others. So if this hits here like it might, then we have the potential to struggle with it more. So I'm trying to take on whatever Facebook warriors I can, but really try to help people understand the whole concept of flatten the curve and to try to not overwhelm our systems. And part of that is being smart and not sticking your thumb up to the the encouragement or the guidance that's being offered by people that are trying to do their best to save lives. So that's my piece.
Okay. Along that same line, I think I'm about ready to jump off of Facebook, but there's a lot of people that are critical about what's being done at it could be local and state and national level. This is something that's new, and I think everybody is moving through it the best they can, no matter what level. And there's a lot of criticisms over whether it be closing schools or 50 people or 10 people or 6 feet or 10 feet or whatever. But decisions have to be made, and the decisions are made not like any other decision. Not everybody's going to like it. And I want to commend, like Marcia, the people in this city, in this county, for what they're doing and pulling together and taking on this task, as well as the people that are putting, they're on the front lines, the doctors, the nurses, the EMS people, firefighters, policemen, and just a myriad of different people. I want to commend them for, they're putting their health and well-being out there on the line. So thank you to everyone, and this is what a strong community and a strong county does, is pulls together, and let's all be on the same side. So, that's it. Eaton?
I'd just like to mirror everything everybody else has been talking about. It's real nice to know that we have a community that can band together when we need to tackle these kinds of issues that typically nobody's going to be used to for a while. Hopefully this is something that don't stick around, and we can continue to prevent the spread of this virus and just keep it out of our community. Just like to thank everybody that's done everything up to this point, and let's just keep the fight going.
Thanks, Keaton. Christy?
I don't know that I can say anything that hasn't already been said, but I will mention that denial is a very powerful defense mechanism, and certainly that's something that we're seeing now among some members of our community. But it is good to know that we've got leadership that is relying on scientific evidence, and so I give accolades to the people who are making those decisions. So at any rate, keep it up, and appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to recess until 5:30 Thursday, the 19th of March?
So moved.
I have a motion from Chuck. And a second?
Second.
And a second from Keaton. We are in recess.
Thank you, and we'll send
tomorrow, and it's the same modus operandi. We're going to be on Zoom.
We'll do another Zoom meeting. We'll have to.
Do we have to vote on that?
You're on mute, Amy.
Yeah, we got to vote on that. All those in favor of recessing till 5:30 tomorrow night, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
We will send you out a new invitation for Zoom for tomorrow night.
Okay. Thank you